Welcome to 7 Days Report, your reliable source of information from all major news from around the world. I'm your host, Vasilios Nikolaos Vitsilogiannis. Every weekend at 12 and 21, we bring you the latest headlines, in-depth analysis, and insightful commentary on the stories that matter most. Whether you're tuning in for a recap of the week or looking for a deeper understanding of global events, we've got you covered. Let's start with our first news. Tensions escalated in a West Bank village after Israeli settlers allegedly torched several Palestinian vehicles and homes in a violent nighttime attack. According to local sources, the incident occurred in a village located northeast of Ramallah, a frequent flashpoint in the ongoing Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Eyewitnesses reported that settlers arriving in multiple vehicles set fire to at least 5 Palestinian cars parked near residential homes and damaged several houses by throwing Molotov cocktails. The flames caused significant property damage, but fortunately, no casualties were reported as families evacuated in time. The Palestinian Authority condemned the attack as a terrorist aggression aimed at intimidating civilians and changing the status quo. Village residents expressed fear and frustration, highlighting the lack of sufficient protection by Israeli security forces who reportedly arrived hours after the violence had subsided. Israeli military spokesperson said they were investigating the incident and promised to hold the perpetrators accountable. However, such attacks by extremist settlers have increased in frequency recently, fueling cycles of retaliation and deepening mistrust between communities. Human rights organizations called for urgent measures to protect Palestinian civilians and prevent settler violence, noting that these attacks undermine prospects for peace and violate international law. This latest incident underscores the fragile situation in the West Bank, where settlement expansion and settler violence remain major obstacles to a peaceful resolution between Israelis and Palestinians. The international community continues to watch closely as tensions threaten to spiral further. The U.S. House of Representatives voted overwhelmingly to compel the Justice Department to release files related to Jeffrey Epstein, the disgraced financier whose controversial death in 2019 sparked widespread suspicion and numerous conspiracy theories. The bipartisan vote reflects mounting pressure on federal authorities to provide transparency on the case that has captivated public attention for years. Epstein, who was facing charges of sex trafficking minors, died while in a federal jail, officially ruled a suicide. However, many questions remain unanswered regarding the extent of Epstein's connections and the full scope of criminal activity linked to him and his associates. The newly approved measure demands the Justice Department disclose investigative records and documents surrounding the circumstances of Epstein's death and his alleged criminal network. Lawmakers expressed the urgent need for clarity to restore public trust in the justice system, emphasizing that revealing the hidden files is essential for ensuring accountability. The bill enjoyed overwhelming support from both Democrats and Republicans, signaling strong cross-party interest in shedding light on Epstein's case and its broader implications. Justice Department officials did not immediately respond to requests for comment, but the vote exemplifies congressional determination to pierce through institutional secrecy. Advocates for Epstein's victims hailed the move as a critical step toward justice for those affected and a necessary deterrent against abuse of power. As the Justice Department prepares to comply, many are watching closely to see whether the disclosures will reveal new information about Epstein's activities or the nature of government oversight failures. The release of these files could reshape public understanding of one of the most high-profile legal sagas in recent American history. At least 25 people were killed and dozens more injured in deadly Russian strikes overnight on the city of Ternopil in western Ukraine. The attacks came as part of a series of intensified missile and drone strikes targeting Ukrainian infrastructure and urban areas, causing widespread destruction and civilian casualties. Ternopil, a regional hub far from the eastern front line, was hit by multiple high-explosive missiles, destroying residential buildings, medical facilities, and utilities. Emergency services worked through the night to rescue trapped residents amid fires and rubble. Ukrainian officials strongly condemned the strikes as a blatant attack on civilians, reaffirming their commitment to defend the country's sovereignty. The tragic loss of life and injuries adds to the mounting toll since the Russian invasion began in 2022. Amid the escalation, Axios reported that U.S. Officials are quietly collaborating with Russian counterparts on a potential peace plan. Washington aims to mediate a diplomatic resolution that could bring an end to the conflict, which has now entered its fourth year. Details of the negotiations have not been publicly disclosed, but sources suggest that the plan involves ceasefire terms and safeguards for Ukraine's territorial integrity. The violent strikes in Ternopil underscore the ongoing high stakes and human cost of the war, even as behind-the-scenes talks raise cautious hopes for potential progress toward peace. The situation remains fluid as international diplomatic efforts continue alongside the harsh realities on the ground for civilians caught in the conflict. Mexican authorities announced the arrest of an alleged mastermind behind the assassination of Carlos Manzo, the popular opposition mayor of Uruapan, Michoacan. Manzo, a vocal critic of the federal government's security policies, was fatally shot during a Day of the Dead celebration on November 1. This event shocked the nation and ignited widespread protests. Carlos Manzo had gained national attention for his outspoken stance against organized crime, repeatedly accusing the government of neglecting to tackle rampant violence in Michoacan, a key avocado-producing region. His murder not only marked a tragic loss for the community, but also intensified public outrage over Mexico's ongoing security challenges. Authorities have linked the arrest to the violent campaign targeting local officials who resist criminal groups. The suspect is believed to have orchestrated the attack that killed Manzo in the presence of his family, further fueling demands for justice and accountability. President Andrés Manuel López Obrador condemned the killing and pledged a thorough investigation to bring all those responsible to account. Mass protests continue to spread across Mexico, with citizens demanding stronger protections for elected officials and more effective action against drug cartels. Manzo's death has become a symbol of the dangers faced by politicians who challenge organized crime, raising urgent questions about the government's ability to ensure safety and uphold the rule of law. The arrest marks a critical step, but many Mexicans remain skeptical about long-term improvements in security and governance amid pervasive violence in the region. In the chaotic aftermath of Tanzania's disputed presidential election last month, the country has been engulfed in unrest as police and armed patrols opened fire on protesting groups. Eyewitnesses report that many protesters appeared unarmed, with some carrying only rocks and sticks, underscoring growing tensions and fears of worsening violence. The election, held on October 28, resulted in claims of electoral fraud and irregularities from opposition parties, sparking widespread demonstrations. What began as peaceful protests quickly escalated into violent clashes as security forces moved aggressively to suppress dissent. Videos circulating on social media show chaotic scenes of gunfire and frantic attempts by protesters to avoid bullets. Health officials have confirmed dozens of casualties, though exact numbers remain unclear due to restricted access to affected areas. Several arrests have also been reported. Human rights organizations have expressed alarm over the excessive use of force by police and paramilitary groups, urging the Tanzanian government to investigate the incidents and ensure the protection of civilians' rights to peaceful assembly. The unrest poses a serious challenge to the country's stability just weeks after the tightly contested election. International observers have called for dialogue between the ruling party and opposition leaders to peacefully resolve the dispute and restore trust in the electoral process. As Tanzania navigates this critical period, the focus remains on preventing further bloodshed and upholding democratic principles in the face of mounting tensions and public outcry. That was your news for now. I'm your host Vasilios Nikolaos Vitsilogiannis. Stay with us for a complete coverage of the news around the world. Goodbye.